it good times. Come on. Do, 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 do. Woohoo! I am celebrating that today marks my 10th episode of the There She Goes podcast, which is an awesome milestone that I want to celebrate. It's always so important to celebrate mini milestones along the way. And 10 episodes is just a really big deal because I think a lot of podcasts, if you look at statistics, don't even make it past that 10th episode. So here I am. I stayed consistent. It's month 2 and episode 10. And I have a very special episode for you today. Today's episode is going to be jam-packed with valuable information if you are interested in starting your very own podcast and making it past episode 10. So make sure to check the show notes on this one. Everything that I'm going to mention is going to be very practical tools and services that I actually used or continue to use to launch this very podcast. So make sure to check out the show notes because a lot of these tools and services do include a nice discount for listeners here. So make sure that if you are interested in starting your own podcast, you take a look and take advantage of those offers. I got so many questions when I started this podcast about how I started, and so many people letting me know that they're curious about potentially starting their own podcast, which is really exciting. I think that's really fun. That's where I was just a few months ago. So I knew that I had to make my 10th episode a special one. So here you go. Buckle up for all of the jam-packed information I'm about to give you on how to start your podcast in 3 months. So for me, it was 3 months, and you're literally getting advice very fresh from someone who just started her podcast less than 2 months ago, okay? So it's been a month and a half. And I'll be sharing some budget estimates as well at the end, and I'll give a better breakdown in the show notes. So again, another reason to please make sure you save this episode, check out the show notes. There's a lot of valuable information in here. So let's get started. I launched this podcast in 3 months, like I mentioned. So I launched in February 26th of 2026. And I actually made the decision by December 10th of 2025 that I would finally launch my very own podcast. Now, you can check out my first episode if you want to learn a little bit about why I started this podcast and, what you can expect from this podcast. But for today's special episode, I want to focus on how I started the podcast and how you can start your very own podcast. The very first thing you have to do is decide why you want to start a podcast and what you want to talk about. The subject matter has to be something that you're genuinely interested in talking about and that you can actually talk about consistently episode after episode to make sure that you do hit that 10 episode plus mark. So for me, what that looked like is last year, I decided to hire a business coach. I went through a group coaching program from the Beam Life with my business coach, Caitlin Anthony. And even though I really focused that group coaching program time more so on my wedding planning business, Italy Brides, I always knew in the back of my mind that I really wanted to start my own podcast. It was something that I knew that I felt called to do. And what's might be surprising that out of this 8-month program, so much value, right, out of these 8 months. But I think what might be surprising about how much value I got from just a 1-hour hot seat during a 3-day retreat, which was part of the program, that's actually where I really dove into what is now known as There She Goes in front of a room of 12 women. It was awesome in that 1-hour hot seat that I got in Joshua Tree, California. I spoke up about what I was thinking and what started out as an unclear vision and simply something that I'm passionate about and excited about turned into a strategy. So I really came out of that session with great feedback from all of the attendees and great feedback from Caitlin to really put me on a path to understand exactly what the steps were that I needed to take now that I knew that I really could start a podcast about everything I enjoy. So, pop culture, music, musicals, Disney, everything's fair game. And I didn't really see how I could turn that into what is now known as There She Goes. So, very first thing I would say is make sure that you know why you want to start a podcast and what you want to talk about. I highly, highly recommend, of course, Caitlin's, coaching services, whether it's her retreat, whether it's a VIP call, whether it's her embodied earner 12-month program, whatever program makes sense for you, Caitlin would be happy to hook you up. And again, we've partnered up to make sure that you get a very nice discount when you sign up for any of those programs. So the next thing that I went and did, now that I knew what I wanted to talk about and why I wanted to start a podcast, and okay, I'll give you a sneak peek. You don't have to go and listen to the first episode for the whole take, but for the sneak peek, the why I started this podcast is I was desperately seeking validation and permission to start these ventures, Italy Brides and There She Goes, last year. I was drowning in a corporate career that did not feel aligned for me. Now I'm in a much better corporate career situation and building Italy Brides and There She Goes on the side. But at the time, I really needed permission and I was looking for it in stories, songs, etc. You can actually hear that if you're on the audio version of this podcast. You probably heard that in the intro audio of the podcast. So that's the why, is making sure that if you're out there seeking permission as well, hopefully this podcast can be that permission for you. And same with the guests that I bring on the show. Hopefully that can mirror back to you one of your hopes, dreams, or fears that have kept you stuck. And you get to now give yourself permission to take the leap and follow your dreams and see that there's actual tangible proof out there that it's possible. So next up, let's get tangible now and practical. Setting up your home studio, right? So where do you want to record? Where do you plan to record? Are you planning to record in your home? Is it feasible for you to record in your home, uninterrupted, noise controlled, lighting control, etc.? Is that feasible for you? Are you going to think about renting out a studio space, or you're just doing audio? Well, then obviously that's a different setup. But for me, I wanted to do the full look video and audio. I wanted to use all the platforms, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, everything you could think of. And plus I've got a very expressive personality, so I figured let's go for YouTube. So for my home studio setup, I ended up hiring D. Scott, who is an award-winning producer and happens to be Caitlin's partner. So I met D through Caitlin and hired them to set up my studio space the way that I wanted to really represent my brand, the lighting and the feel that I wanted. So, I mean, it's literally 10:08 p.m. and I bet you probably didn't know that because the lighting that I wanted to give off was just like this bright, happy, jovial energy, which I really feel that they helped me accomplish. And more than anything, the best part of those sessions, besides the practical advice and setting up a professional looking space in my own home, we just had the best time. There's such a jokester. You will be laughing so much, and you will get kind of the best of both worlds feel out of it. You'll get the experience that you were looking for, and you'll have fun along the way. You could actually check out some of those behind the scenes clips that I took in my Instagram highlights. You could check out the fun that we had setting up the studio. Honestly, that was probably the most fun that I had during the preparation of the podcast launch phase. So D is also offering you discounts on their podcast studio setup, which if you like the look and feel, make sure to check that out and get your own professional look and feel for you. So once I set up my home studio, the very next thing I did was leveraged my community. Super, super important for you to leverage your community. And what do I mean by that? I started to ask people that I know, that I love, and people as well from social media to join my launch squad. So I basically asked for people to join me on the journey of launching this podcast, really be with me behind the scenes and help me grow some momentum around the show before it even existed. So get your community on board early on. Make this bigger than just a podcast launch. Ask them for support early on. Ask them to, share, send reviews, like make sure that you've got the support early on, because those early on supporters are going to help your show gain that momentum and find the people that really need your show. So leverage your community. Next up, plan. Create a launch plan. In order to launch in 3 months, I had a launch plan. I had a roadmap in place that included anything from setting up my home studio all the way to taking brand photos, which I'll talk about in a second, recording and editing videos, inviting guests, setting up my launch squad. All of that was all planned out ahead of time, and I started chipping away at it little by little as time went on. And I'm more than happy to share my own launch roadmap with you all. I can create that as a resource as well. So again, if that's something of interest, check out the show notes. And hint when it comes to your plan, don't leave your cover art till the very last minute. Check out the very last episode I just released before this one, all about how I learned to delegate and all about my friend Liz, who helped me create the cover art for this podcast, which, by the way, I highly, highly recommend. Another amazing resource. If you like the look of the podcast cover art, to me, it looks like a movie poster. I'm obsessed. She's also offering you all discount on her packages. Like I said, this episode jam-packed with value. Bam, bam, bam. Like, get all of your services and all of your tools all in one go. We've all got you. And this is literally everything I did exactly as I did it to launch in 3 months. So it's really important for you to learn to delegate and hire support. It is super important that you don't try to do things all on your own. You don't have to figure things out on your own. Really think about where you shine and what you can really take on yourself versus where you do need that extra support, especially if you're looking for a more professional feel. It really depends. Like if you're going for more hobby style, or you're really trying to make this into a business, the level of support that you need and the level that you hire at. And don't underestimate how long it takes to edit, record. There's sometimes takes multiple takes, invite guests, write show notes, publish, especially if you're learning all these technologies all at once. So make sure you give yourself enough buffer time to learn all of that. That's something that, as much as I tried to do, I definitely still left a lot of it till the end. And that's why, if you listen to my previous episode, you'll hear that I was up till 3 a.m, like 3 days straight leading to the launch. So I'm trying to avoid you that pain, delegate and hire early on, and give yourself enough time to learn these new technologies and to go through these different tasks that you have to go through. So the other thing that I did that was part of the launch, and this might not necessarily be something you have to do for a podcast launch, especially if you already have this, but I didn't have brand photos. So I have a whole episode on that too. It's the There She Goes flying 5 hours for a brand photo shoot. So check that episode out as well. That episode is all about how I flew to New Jersey to meet up with Nev, who became my brand photographer. And she did an amazing job capturing the essence of what my brand is like, what I want you to feel when you engage with me, with this show, with the community. And that one of the pictures from that brand photo shoot is the one that I'm using on the cover art of the show. So another amazing woman doing great work. And again, another woman offering you all a discount on her services. So if you also are looking for brand photos, she's based in New Jersey, but she does travel to different locations. So you might even catch her in California if you're in California. She does tend to have some events here throughout the year. All right. This has been super fun seeing this vision come to life. And let's talk a little bit now about podcast tools, and then we'll talk about some of the business tools. So, all of what I just mentioned is all of the services that I used and that really helped me be where I am today and make me feel more confident in launching this podcast, confident in what the quality that I was putting out there. That was important to me is I really wanted to start myself off right and be able to do this time and time again with that foundation already set in place. So as for the tools, specifically for podcasting, there's many tools, but specifically the systems and the tools that you need for podcasting, at least the ones that I use. And I think really the most popular ones is Riverside. This is going to be your recording and your editing tool. It's what I'm using right now, as you can see here. So everything you see here has been recorded and edited in Riverside. For publishing your episodes and distributing them to all the different platforms, Apple, Spotify, etc., everything except YouTube, so all of the audio platforms, I use Buzzsprout. So Buzzsprout is the one that I use for publishing the episode and distributing across platforms. Now, YouTube, you do have to do that manually through YouTube because it is video. So I do that one separately manually. Now, as for the equipment for podcasting, I am using, you can see it here. I still need to get myself a microphone flag is what they're called. So just FYI, if you didn't know, because I looked it up all over. I'm like, microphone box, microphone cover. Okay, it's called a microphone flag, and I am gonna get one. And when I do, I'll link it in the show notes as well. So I don't have a custom logo yet. So you can actually see that I'm using a Shure MV7 Plus microphone. And I'm using these fun Beats Studio Pro earphones. Honestly, you could probably use your own like AirPods or other earphones, but I love the look that it gives me, that podcaster look. Like, who is she? She's a podcaster. So I use those. That's more of a look and style, feel, and fashion. And I'm also using for the camera a Logitech Brio camera and a bunch of fun Godox lighting. But for a tailored approach and a tailored equipment list to your needs, to your space, to your lighting preferences, to your budget, make sure to check out D. Scott's studio setup offer because they will walk you through what you specifically need. This is just what I'm using for my needs. Now, for more general business tools, and definitely, if you got your business set up, you've got all your systems, that's awesome. But if you're like me, so you're pretty new to podcasting world, but you also might be new to just like launching a business. These are all the different tools that I recommend and that have been helping me with the podcast as well from the business side of things. So, and marketing side of things. So Canva Pro, super important for marketing and social media graphics, or, for tinkering around and doing a disastrous cover art first attempt, like I did, feel free to use Canva Pro, or better yet, hire my friend Liz for some awesome graphics and cover art. But Canva Pro, definitely super recommended. I'm using Flodesk for my email marketing. I'm new to the email marketing space and I'm loving it so far because I'm getting to send out some newsletters with behind the scenes content, blooper reels, more deep dive into these episodes. And I'm just loving that, like getting to dive a little bit deeper. So make sure to sign up for that newsletter if that's something that you're interested in. I'd love to have you and have a more direct connection to you all. I always use an AI tool of choice, whatever tool you'd like to use. AI is really supporting me in helping me facilitate the show notes, writing, social media captions, etc. It's very important to me that things are in my voice, in my true, honest voice, and the way I write things. So I really do use it a little bit more for like an outline and general concept. And I do still do a lot of tweaking and editing myself because, again, it's important to me that it's genuine, but it's just very helpful if you do have an AI tool to kind of bounce back and forth with. I also use Google Workspaces myself personally for my email and document storage needs. I use Calendly to schedule my guest episodes. And I also am, this is more recent, I'm using Asana to plan out my content for my podcast to get a little bit more organized. I use a Kanban board. I am a project manager by day, by trade, so I do have that background. But I am liking this Asana Kanban board where I get to basically write, this episode is being planned, this episode is being scheduled, this episode is already recorded, and then this episode is already published. And so I have like that process flow down. That's been really helpful. I'm using Jotform as opposed to DocuSign to send out my guest release forms, so the legalese side of things, only because I think I'm just not at a stage where DocuSign, that formality and the budget is necessary. So I'm using more of a free platform, Jotform. So again, just speaking to the differences of depending on what you're looking for and depending on the size of your efforts and your needs and your budget, these are the different tools you could be using. And then finally, for my domain, I used GoDaddy, and that's a pretty simple one. Okay, so I mentioned that I would do a quick overview of costs. So just to give you an idea, everything that I mentioned for me from a services standpoint, the costs were a little over 2,400. So to give you a sense from a services standpoint, that's where I landed. Again, you can go up and down depending on how much you need, but if you are trying to do everything and as professional as possible from day one, that's just a good guidance for you to know what you might be spending on. And for equipment, for me, and this does include anything from my desk chair to make it more comfy. That's just something that I really wanted. And from a look perspective, it includes like furniture as well as like my rug that I bought for the sound, acoustics. And it actually also includes for me personally on the go equipment. So I do like to record some things on the go and when I'm traveling. So it includes a little bit more of that. It includes things like my Beats, which again, you don't have to have if you don't need the look, but that to me was 1,600. So, I mean, if you're looking at it, my total setup costs were $4,000. So there you go. If you wanted to have a rough estimate of what it might look like for you to start a podcast, please don't be discouraged if $4,000 sounds like intense, insane. Now it's unattainable. Now I don't want to start my podcast. Again, it depends why you want to start your podcast, what you want to talk about. Do you want to do video or is it just audio to start with? How important is the sound and quality and the video quality to you? It really depends on what you're looking for. But for me, and if you're looking for starting off from the get-go, full on, as professional as possible from home as a business, that's what you might be looking at. So hopefully this was helpful to you. And please let me know if you're looking to start your own podcast. I would love to chat, support your show. I would love to know which parts of this were helpful. And, feel free, please, to contact me, DM me, reach out, or check out the show notes, or reach out to any of the people that I mentioned, any of the services that I mentioned. I highly, highly value each and every one of them. I wouldn't share them if I didn't. So again, feel free to take advantage of those discounts if you are going to start your own podcast. And if you are, and if you use any of them or don't, regardless, I would love to hear more about your journey, what your podcast is about, what you do, what it's called, and why you wanted to start a podcast. So if this was helpful, I encourage you to like, subscribe, follow, review, all the things. And I hope that you actually contact me because I really would love to support you in your podcast journey from a fellow new podcaster. Till next time.